let's chat about the role of product in luxury advertising. Now, it's common for luxury advertising to contain the most famous celebrities, right? I'm thinking Lil Nas X, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Blanchett. But you've been saying that oftentimes the product can be the real star.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the fact is that fashion and luxury brands have cool, amazing, beautiful products that also have a lot of history with them in a lot of cases. And people are interested in seeing those products. So, this again dates back to my time at Google, but also in my work with JMA and Brainsights. Like when the product has a heavier role where it feels like almost a supporting character in the story, that's when the ads do really well. When we're trying to sneak product in and almost make it a secondary piece, there's just a drop in effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And depending on what your goal is, the role of product should actually increase, depending, if it's in the conversion space or what have you. But the best example of this is actually with a client of mine, with David Yurman. And we tested a batch of stuff at the beginning of the year, about 10 different ads. And there's this really interesting comparison between two ads that starred Scarlett Johansson. Both beautiful, really, really lovely. Like the look and visual aesthetics of it were great, but they're remarkably different in the story. And that one just featured Scarlett the whole time wearing the product. The other opened in the first 10 seconds, zeroed in on the necklace and the charm rather than her. So the first 10 seconds of the ad, all you're seeing is this beautiful product, and it's on somebody, but you don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. And the difference in effectiveness and engagement was through the roof when it came to the one that waited to reveal that it was Scarlett Johansson wearing that piece. Mm-hmm. And that story is not just a one-off anecdote. That is a reflection of what we see when it comes to advertising effectiveness with luxury, is that the product can play an equal or even bigger role than the celebrity who's wearing it. And in a lot of cases, celebrity becomes a canvas for the product. And that the thing that the celebrity is best to do is almost to, in some cases, kind of pull the customer along. I see that beautiful product. I know somebody's wearing it. I just don't know who, and I'm going to stick around to see it. And then by the time you get past 6 seconds into 10 seconds, all of a sudden you're locked into the story, dating back to 2019 through COVID into now. The best luxury ads feature the product in at least a supporting role, but sometimes a starring role.
Amazing. So, I mean, you kind of beautifully painted that picture. Do you think in that opening, you said it was a really strong hook. You think, people were really drawn in by that. What do you think is happening in people's heads?
It's a great example of the 2+2 of storytelling, where it's like, don't tell them it's 4, tell them it's 2+2 and let them figure it out. And it's like, someone really dope is wearing that piece. Yeah. But you got to stick around to see it. And like that, what you're doing when you hire a celebrity is to make people interested in the ad. And in this case, the way the story was written is that it was better to wait to show Scarlett and to utilize that tease as the way to get people into the ad.
You're opening up a gap in people's knowledge or in people's understanding, and then you're kind of given the license to sort of fill that in, I suppose.
Yeah. It's and when it comes to like hooks, and this is, we've talked about this a lot, giving them a puzzle to solve.
Yep.
Always going to be a way when you think about culture now and like entertainment now, so much of it is built in predicting what's going to happen next. With Succession it wasn't about watching Succession. It was watching Succession so you could participate in all the podcasts that followed it. Like, and people talking about it. Oh, I did this. And like, there's an element of that we want in our ads that, if this, most advertising is avoided,
Mm-hmm.
Most people want to get back to whatever the thing they're doing is. So it makes a lot of sense that you would borrow from what is, happening in storytelling in other places. And this idea of, letting people participate and giving them something to solve, it makes total sense that it would work in advertising as well.
Yeah, huge. Now, obviously, in the Yurman example, Scarlett Jo, famous star, probably spent a lot of money, on that spokesperson. Is there an appropriate balance that you've seen between product and spokesperson star in an ad like that? Like, give us some perspective on that.
I would say it's always going to be a recipe rather than a prescription. So, if you're cooking, you can have your cookbook, but you're always going to adapt based upon what you have in your pantry versus what your palate says is good or not. And I think every ad is going to be like that. The thing that advertisers can do and luxury and fashion can do is to understand when they are writing the brief, when they're casting, is that how is this person going to support the product and the brand? So you think about some of the work I've done with Coach. Like, we partnered with them starting in 2021, excuse me. And I've worked with them periodically up until now. And the thing that we've always really focused on is they always cast so well. They are, as far as inclusivity goes, they are doing it as good as anybody in the business, and it reflects in their business. They have continued to grow through 2022, 2023. Their earnings call just came out, and even in a really tough time for premium and luxury fashion, Coach is still a beacon of growth, even within that tapestry business. So the fact is, they're doing a great job in that area. The thing that we keep seeing is that whenever we tested ads, 2021, 2022, people always told us they wanted to see more product. Now, a Michael B. Jordan spot, one of my favorite things I've ever worked on was for their platform called Coach TV. And it was a Michael B. Jordan starring as Shaft. And great spot. The visual was so great, really vintage. The branding and the typography was just on point. But we tested it. And one of the things we do when testing is like, we look at how it performs in market as the most important thing, but we want to understand why it performed that way. So he said, what about this spot did you like? And they gave us the answers, but we give them options to tell us what they didn't like. So, what did you want to see more of in this ad? I wanted to see more product. Pieces are beautiful. And when you think about for fashion and luxe, like, you guys spend, this is what you're selling, but also think about all the details. When you are talking about a collection, let some of that come through. Let some of that come through in your advertising. One of the, they were doing a parody, as an homage, I should say, to a movie. Like, instead of saying starring Michael B. Jordan, maybe you just say starring, and then you put the product name. Like, little things like that can change everything, because instead of looking at his face, you're now looking at the bomber jacket that he has on. And I think those are the recipe that when I say recipe, that's sort of what I mean, is like, what is the story you're trying to tell, and how can product be a part of it?
And does that mix change if the product is new versus a classic?
When we've looked at fashion and luxe, the ads that tend to be more effective are the ones with classic products in it. So again, the Coach is just a good example of this. So this has been the one that me and their CMO have talked a lot about. Like, in each campaign, you can see them going a little bit further. And what's interesting is, like, with their Tabby campaign. So Tabby is a handbag that I think was launched in the 70s, and they relaunched it, but it still had the DNA of the classic. And what you've seen is that they actually just said, you know what, we're going to put this front and center, and we're going to tap into the heritage, but we're going to have, the proper talent, but the story is told through the prism of the bag. Luxury brands should feel comfortable with saying, we don't need a new product to talk about product. If I'm Burberry, I can hear about that trench all day long. Because there's the most luxury brands, there is if you're lucky enough to have one of those classic products, a lot of times the collections and that over the years, they always feel connected to that hero product. Burberry trench is a great one, but every brand has like kind of those things they keep going back to. So I'd say it's not necessarily either or, but don't be always seduced by having to talk about the newest, latest, and greatest, or actually eschewing product if it's not new. Even if it's a classic, it can really drive effectiveness in the work. There's a reason why those products are timeless. And that can be, especially with new, if you're talking to new customers, younger customers, like, why not utilize product to provide a window into the history of the brand?
Yeah, there's something interesting in that, right? Like, just rooting to something that's classic. There's a piece of nostalgia in there. There's timeless craft.
Well, the
there's
nostalgia
a permanence there in an era of ephemerality, right?
Well, the nostalgia piece with product is interesting too, because that's another thing we've tested. This was with Puma, but they had their 50th anniversary of the Clyde, or the suede.
Yeah.
And, the Clyde was the first sneaker named after an athlete. Like he was the Clyde. Walt Clyde Frazier played for the Knicks for 10 years. One of the, he's an announcer for the team now. But they had a 50th anniversary, and like the question is like, one, can we use the story of the product to create a feeling of nostalgia in the audience? And two, does that feeling of nostalgia have any value with a younger audience that wouldn't know who this person is, and definitely wasn't around when the product was developed? And one, yes, the product can be used to create a feeling of nostalgia in the audience. And two, it absolutely helps connect with Gen Z. We've been looking at the new nostalgia, where it's not necessarily connecting to a reference point that you remember. It's more so creating a feeling and almost a feeling of stability, comfort, escape, anchoring, absolutely. And to when something's been around for a long time, there is a certain comfort in that. It's experience in a way. And so it was really... Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's been exciting, because a lot of times brands are always looking to connect with younger consumers. Is like, tell them about the story of your classic product. Like, tell them about that. Dive into your archives. Yeah. Well, that's what we did with Puma. Like Puma, the asset that we tested was a 2-minute PR spot that had less than 1,000 views on their channel. Mm-hmm. We said, hey, like, there's something good here. Why don't we, instead of trying to shoot something new, why don't we test this, and then we can utilize the learnings to influence the brief for the For All Time campaign, which was that 50 years celebration. And we just reworked it and amplified the feeling of nostalgia through the visual effects, through the music, and then just layered in a few more product and brand cues. And all of a sudden you had a 2-minute PR spot that became a 90-second best-in-class asset. And for brands that do have an archive, don't be afraid to go into that archive, to use it to connect not only with your existing customers, but to grow the customer base with younger audience. I was just reminded as you were going through like the PR piece, like the Johnny Walker Man Who Walked Around the World, right? Great one. Like classic one. I think that was actually originally done for a sales conference or a marketing conference by the agency, but it was so well received that they were like, we should release this more broadly. Mm-hmm. And it went gangbusters. Yep. Very cool. This has been amazing. You're a legend. Obviously anybody in this space, luxury goods advertising, should be working with Jeff Miner Advertising to, push their brand forward. Any last words you want to share, my friend? I would say I've referenced a lot of examples throughout our conversation, but most of the learnings and the insights and the path to effectiveness was carved through experimentation. The culture moves too fast. Things change too fast to always be at the tip of the spear when it comes to this. But through experimentation, we can do our best to catch up, whether that's product, whether that's, understanding the role of product in your story, whatever it is. Testing and learning, and knowing that you can pivot and evolve when you see if something's working or not working. The enemy is not trying new things. This isn't the Mad Men era where you lock in a campaign and that's what you're going to be doing. Anything can be evolved, changed, tweaked, and it can be done in a very quick fashion and after not that much time in market. The ability to mitigate risk through experimentation has never been higher, and the best brands are going to be the ones that use that to their advantage.